Welcome to the new expert economy. I'm going to explain what that is in just a second, but today we're going to talk about what I consider the single most important personal and business branding tool. In short, it's a book, your book. And if you've never written a book, I'm going to give you some ideas on how to get it flat out done. But if you have written a book, I'm going to show you how to launch that book into the world to create the kind of impact and success you want. This is EdTalks Live, and 6.5 strategies to grow your book is next. Hey, what's up? Welcome to the show. My name is Ed Rush, former F-18 fighter pilot, 5-time #1 best-selling author, your host for the most positive place on the planet for insanely implementable ideas. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into a background of this because next week I'm going to be unpacking and unveiling what I believe is the new expert economy. Basically, what's happening in the world right now is accelerating a change which is going to put you, I believe, on the forefront in your ability to communicate, to move the needle, and to catalyze a movement. Today, I'm going to talk about one small component of that, which is books, the creation and the promotion of books. And in a moment, I'm going to show you some of the success that my last book had so that you can see some of the things that I did behind the scenes to help me launch and promote that book. As usual, if you're joining us, jump into chat on the right-hand side. Tell me who you are, where you're from, what you do. If you're on Facebook or Twitter, that's below. Most of our audience these days is on YouTube, so you're welcome to jump over to the YouTube channel. It's just edtalkslive.com. That's where the website is. If you want to involve yourself in the most robust chat in the world, which is our chat. All right, so I'm going to say hello to some of our friends who jumped in chat. Barry Gamar showed up #1, baby, right in the 9:16 this morning. BC, I could use some of that rain. We got a little bit of rain last night. I love it when it rains here in San Diego. Good morning. Gina, good to see you as well. Jim Butts, welcome Aubrey to the show. Dennis, not only is this topic timely, but I have your book pulled up as an example that I'm going to use. In fact, I'm going to give you, Dennis, some specific suggestions on something that you can do to help promote your book. And then I'm going to give you a community gift, okay? So, and by the way, I'm going to be talking about Dennis's book today. Do me a favor, don't buy his book just yet because we're going to make a couple changes, Dennis and I together, on his book. And then next week, we're going to do a little community give to Dennis, and we're going to use it as a demonstration. I'm going to show you what we can accomplish with someone's book, okay? So you're going to get a cool bonus today, buddy. Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, all of a sudden, like, it's Wednesday. What's up with that, man? Hey, Terry, good to see you, buddy. Diana, good to see you as well. Aja, welcome to the show. David Zetz, my man. I know I started putting my demo reel, so the video that you saw before the show, what I realized is some of you are here ahead of time with the page pulled up, ready to go. A lot of people get notified via email because they're subscribers to the channel, and it says, hey, this is going live on this channel. So what I wanted to do is create about a minute buffer coming into the show that gave people time to get on. Sometimes it takes time for the streaming to start, and you might miss the first thing that I'm saying. Sometimes the first thing I say is like the most important thing. All right, so let's see. Oh, cool. I just said she's writing a book. I love it. All right, cool. David, talking about books. This won't be the last time, by the way, we talk about books. Corey, what's going on, buddy? I owe you an email as well. Dennis, or Catherine, this is your lunch. All right, cool. What's up, Mike Toy? Good to see you as well. All right, so we are talking today about 6.5 book writing and promotion tips. So just so you know, for context, this shows a little bit of what I call working without a net. So I do have an outline for what we're going to do today, but we're going to jump onto Amazon, and I'm going to jump into some details. Now, before I do that, let me just tell you that today I'm going to focus on 3 main areas. I'm going to jump on the board in just a second to share those. The first area I'm going to focus on is the actual writing, because there are some strategies that I'm going to teach you for creating and writing a great book. The second part I'm going to focus on is the book creation, and the third part is the book promotion. Now, in my mind, when I create these shows, I always think, yeah, I got about a half hour worth of teaching, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes here. And then I look at the clock and all of a sudden we ran out of time. So I'm here to tell you that there is a really good chance that this show will be in 2 parts. That's the outline though. Writing, book creation, which is different from the writing, and then book promotion, okay? But we're gonna get to some good stuff. One way or another, Dennis, I'm gonna get to your book because I've got some thoughts for you on how we can totally make this rock and roll. Now, before I do that, by way of announcement, there are 2 big things that are coming out tomorrow, okay? And I can't tell you what they are yet because I committed when I made a decision. I committed to telling our community that are attendees or registered attendees of the upcoming Ultimate Speaker event, I would tell you first, okay? So, first thing is, if you are registered for the upcoming Ultimate Speaker event, we are doing a training tomorrow afternoon, 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern. So I know it's a little bit late, but there's a reason why I moved that a little bit later. I wanted to give an opportunity for some of the folks who, for example, are doctors working during the day to be able to join us at night. I'm going to be making an announcement on that Zoom meeting, our little training, bi-weekly training session, about what we're going to do at the Ultimate Speaker event and then what's going to happen in June. And I'm going to tell you, if you are an Ultimate Speaker, if you're registered for the Ultimate Speaker, you made the best decision you've ever made, okay? Because you are going to get hooked up. Now, if you're not registered for the Ultimate Speaker, little insider tip for you. See that website below? I would get registered now if I was you, because, and I know that you have no idea what the heck I'm even talking about, but I'm here to tell you that that website is literally changing today, okay? And it's not changed yet, at least the last I checked it. So if you get in under the wire, you also are going to get hooked up. Let me just put it this way. Those of you who registered already, you're about to get something that's what I call 2 for the price of 1 and then some. Let me just tell you, it's going to be awesome. Okay, so the website is below. It's theultimatespeaker.com. I know. I just said. I know I didn't give you a lot of details, but if you register, you're going to get to the training tomorrow. The second thing is on the training tomorrow, I've got Michael Haig coming in. So we're going to. On the training, we're going to be talking about your story and doing some individual story coaching. And I will tell you, for those of you registered for Ultimate Speaker, this is not the last time you will get individual attention from Michael regarding your story, okay? So there's a lot of really great stuff that's coming down the pike that you're going to absolutely love. Now, the other thing I'll tell you is put June 25th to 27th on your calendar. That's all I'll say. Okay, just put those dates on your calendar, and that's it as far as that goes. All right, so I know that was like a great big gigantic tease, but I promised my Ultimate Speaker folks I'd tell you first. I'm going to tell you tomorrow on the webinar. If you're not registered, don't you worry. On Friday, I'm going to tell everybody about the whole shebang. All right, so. Let's get into our teaching for today. So today we are talking about 6.5 book writing and promotion tips, some ways to grow your brand. And I will tell you that I consider books the single best personal branding, personal promotion, personal positioning tool that you can have. All those are different things, by the way, branding, promotion, and positioning. When I say positioning, what I mean is someone perceiving you as an expert. By the way, some of you making comments about my shirt. This is in honor of my man, Fat Leonard the Pug. Fat Leonard passed away 2 years ago at the ripe old age of 13. I haven't worn this shirt probably since then, but I just reminded today of my man, Fat Leonard the Pug. He used to sit right here in my office, right on the floor, and just snore. All right, so back to the point. On to book positioning. I don't think there's anything better than a book to help someone see you as the expert that you are in your market. I don't think there's anything better than a book to build your list. If you want to build an email list, the book is the way to do it, okay? I can tell you, I have almost 10,000 new email leads over the last 2 years because of 2 different books, okay? So I'm going to teach you a couple of the strategies on how to do that. But I also said personal branding. There's nothing I don't think that elevates your personal brand much like a book. Now, here's the secret. A book is nothing more than a Word document with a cover. Okay? So, I know you probably read War and Peace. I know you probably read some books and you said to yourself, like I did, I'll never be able to do that. You know what? First of all, that's a lie. It comes from the pit of hell and smells like smoke. The second thing is you have to remember, this is your book, okay? And a book, like I said, is nothing more than let's say it this way, a well-edited Word document with a cover, okay? Because I want to demystify the book writing and the book creation content. When you think about books, I want you to think about books more like a web page than a book, okay? So for example, when I wrote my first book, it's actually sitting here behind me. This is my first book called Fighter Pilot Performance for Business. This book is not available anymore. That's because I rebranded this book. Let me see if I've got a copy of it back here someplace. Yes, I rebranded this book into this book called Take the Shot. You can see the reason why, right? One looks like Battlestar Galactica, one looks branded. There's a reason why I rebranded this specific book, okay? When I wrote this book back in 2008, I had no idea what I was doing. I put together a bunch of articles with some fighter pilot stories, and I just put it out into the marketplace, okay? Since then, I've changed and edited that book no less than 7 times. In fact, my book, 21 Day Miracle, which I'm going to show you as an example in just a second, I'm on the 5th revision of that book. Now, it's not a big revision. That's just me fixing a couple of things that I needed to fix, clarify a couple things, and maybe change a couple of errors. Now, the reason I tell you, think about your book more like a web page than an actual book is when I first published this book, I had to buy 3,000 copies of this book so that I could get the price of the printing down. They sent like a pallet. I kid you not. It was like, doot, doot, doot. The truck backed into my front yard and dropped a stinking pallet of books. And that was 2008. That was 12 years ago. I still have these books, okay? I have nothing to do with these books, but here they are. Every once in a while I bring them to events and I'm like, I sign them as memorabilia or something, okay? So I digress. So my point is, nowadays, when you write a book, if you see that there's a spelling error inside of your book, you can change the document and upload a new document, and you have a new book on Amazon being printed that same day, okay? So my point is, sometimes you get yourself into this, I have to be so perfect, and every word has to be perfect, but I'm here to tell you, much like a website, you're not gonna wait to get your perfect version of the website up. You're gonna put the website up like we do here. Like today, I'm building a website. We're putting a brand new website up. I can guarantee you it will be a disaster when it first lands, and then it'll be fine. By the time a few people go through it, we'll have it all figured out, okay? So think about your book more like a website than you are an actual book, all right? So, yes. So Dennis says, what are those dates? June 25th, I'm just saying. All right, so I can't wait to see your book in print either. Let me tell you, it is a very cool feeling, by the way, when you get that book, that book shows up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over onto the other screen real quick, and we're going to talk about book creation. Remember I said the outline for our training is going to be writing, creation, and promotion, okay? And that's going to be our, why did I want an A there? That's going to be what we're going to cover over the next probably 2 trainings. We're going to start with writing, and then we're going to get into creation. And the difference between these two, by the way, the writing is the actual, as you know, like the typing of the actual book, and the editing part. Okay, the creation includes your cover, your back cover, if you've got, for example, testimonials or endorsements inside of the book. It's got the things like if you have an opt-in page or like a free offer inside of your book. If you've got a Kindle version, which you should have your cover for the Kindle version, that's the creation of the book. And the creation also includes you uploading it, which you're almost definitely going to do your first book on Amazon, right? So you're going to use KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing, and Amazon's paperback publishing service, which requires from you nothing more than 2 files, a Kindle file for your book, which is easy to create, and a paperback file for your book, which is basically a PDF. and 2 cover files for each one of those. Upload those, and then you're done. That's creation. Promotion is how you can get people to see and buy your book. And there's a whole bunch of different book promotion strategies that we can talk about, but we're gonna start with writing, okay? And as usual, I intend on this being interactive, so we're gonna have time for your questions, even if this is the only thing that we end up covering today, okay? So the first thing I'll share with you about writing, and I will tell you that this is the biggest mistake writers make, and it's the biggest mistake even experienced writers make, okay? And to couch this, I will say that, as you know from our discussions, there are 2 parts to your brain. There's more than 2, but there's 2 thinking parts to your brain. There's your subconscious mind, and there's your conscious mind. And the writing process involves both of those minds, but it involves especially an understanding as to how the conscious mind works. Your conscious mind is capable of doing one thing really well. Not 2 things simultaneously, not 3 things simultaneously, and certainly not 10 things simultaneously. So for example, right now, I am looking into this camera. I'm looking into your eyes, communicating directly to you about book writing. Now, later on today, I'm gonna create 3 more videos. I've got another live stream today, midday. I've got a sales letter to write, and I've got some promotions that I need to write for next week for this thing that I can't tell you about yet, okay? So it's a big day. In fact, it may be one of those longer days. But I can't think about those things right now, because if I think about those things right now, I'm not gonna be communicating to you the way that I need to communicate to you. And so those things are over here right now. And when I'm done with today's show, take a deep breath, maybe get some lunch, boom, right into working on what I've got to work on today, because the conscious mind can focus on one thing. Now, the best way that I could describe this for you is think about when you're in an environment which requires a lot of attention and focus for you. So sometimes that's like, for example, Dennis, whose book Fumes into Prayer, Dennis's book discusses flying airplanes. And an emergency that happened in an airplane. Well, look, when you have an emergency in an airplane, which I've certainly had before, your attention is totally fixed on that emergency. If your phone rang during that emergency, somehow you would not only not look at it, you would completely ignore it, because you know when you're in an emergency situation in your airplane that this needs your attention. If you're a doctor or even a parent, and maybe you have an emergency with one of your children that you have to rush them to a hospital. So about 8 months ago, my son cut his hand, a very, very big cut. And the first thing I did as a parent, because of, like, the first aid that I was taught in the military, is put pressure on the wound and stop the bleeding. The second thing we did is wrap it up. And the third thing we did is get him in the car and take him to the emergency room. I can tell you, during that half hour, 45 minutes where we were essentially doing immediate first aid action for my son, I was focused on that. If my phone rang, boom, it's not important to me. I've got to focus on my son right here, okay? And so the first thing I'll teach you, I went in depth on that for a reason, okay? The first thing is, when you write, you need to write, okay? Most authors do 2 things at the same time. They write and edit. That's 2 conscious mind tasks. And you're not going to write something good if you're writing and editing, okay? So, you know those little green squiggly lines that come underneath the word when you write in Word or in Google Docs? By the way, Google Docs is the way to go. You gotta use Google, do not use Word anymore. I'll tell you why later on, okay? Actually, I'll tell you now. The reason you use Google Docs is because when you have editors that are collaborating on your manuscript, if you use Word, now you have a version control issue, but if you use Google Docs, everybody can be working in one doc, you don't have a version control issue, okay? So, when you write, it's write and not write and edit. Typically what I do is I will write a single full chapter and then go back for my first editing pass, and usually my first editing pass is after I'm done with the chapter. All I do is right-click all those red and green underlines. Now, full disclosure, I type like a chicken on amphetamines. I mean, it's ridiculous. The amount of the amount that I write that I haven't figured out, I type pretty fast, but I haven't figured out like that way of typing. It's still a little kind of moves around a lot. Okay. Now, when I'm writing like that, there's words that don't even make sense. There's sentences that don't make sense. Flow. Let it go. Let it flow. Let yourself write. Give yourself permission to get everything out. Okay? Now, there's a reason for this. Writing is like an airplane. Okay? So, when you're in an airplane and you're on the runway, when you take your throttles and push them up, you ever been on an airplane like US Air or something like that? Or US Air, they're not even around anymore. United, you push the throttles up. What happens to that airplane at first? Nothing. Man, that thing is like, it takes a few seconds for that airplane to actually start to catch some air and to start to go. And then you start moving, but you start moving very slowly at first. You're like, dun, 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 dun. And then all of a sudden you feel the airplane picking up speed, and then you feel it picking up more speed. And then if you're like me or Dennis or the other pilots that you know, you're like looking at the airplane, like, I don't know if we're gonna run out of runway. And then all of a sudden the airplane takes off. Because going from 0 to 50 miles an hour in a jet airplane takes a long time. But I can tell you, going from 400 miles an hour to 450 miles an hour in a jet airplane, boom, just like that. And the reason why is a jet airplane breathes air. The more compressed air a jet engine has, the faster it can go. So that nice, cold, compressed air up at high altitudes coming into the engine because it's going really fast, the engine can react very, very quickly. Well, the same is true for you as an entrepreneur, okay? You sit down to write, you start writing, and then you start being an editor. You start to be that critical editor. It's just like taking your throttles and then pulling them back. Taking your throttles and then pulling them back. Taking your throttles and then pulling them back, okay? The second thing I'll tell you is I usually do this first thing in the morning. Now, my typical habit pattern, you've heard me teach this before, is I will get up in the morning, do my daily Bible reading, devotion, meditation, usually a little bit of a workout, eat some breakfast. So when I say first thing, I'm like breakfast, boom, into writing, okay? So my first step, again, some of you have heard me teach this before because I did it on a recent weekly flight briefing. And by the way, if you're not getting my weekly flight briefing email, you need to go to edrush.com right now. Here's the website. Okay? Look, the one that came out today, you do not want to miss. So go to this website, edrush.com, and get that email. Okay? So what I do is a technique called priming the pump. Right? So eat, breakfast, meditate, do my thing, come downstairs. And what I will do is I will open up a book written by somebody that I really, really like their writing. Okay? It doesn't have to be a novel. It doesn't have to be nonfiction. It's just someone who's writing. You think, wow, it's really good, like easy to read writing. Okay, so some of you remember in a weekly flight briefing, I mentioned this book called The Book Thief, which is just really good writing. My book, 21 Day Miracle, I like how that book flows. I think it flows really nicely. So I might sit before I write and read that, okay? When I read it, it's 10 to 30 minutes, and all I'm trying to do is get into the flow. I'm trying to prime myself for writing, okay? Then I sit down and I write, okay? Now, this is write and not edit. This is write, okay? And when I say write, what I mean is write. I don't check my email. I don't check my social media. My phone is off. I've got some music on. I'll talk about that in just a second. I do have some music on, and I write until I can't do it anymore. Then I get up, move around, get some water, get some coffee. I usually take breaks about every 45 to 50 minutes. Then I sit back down and I write. And then I get back up and move around, maybe get something to eat. And then I sit back down and I write. Now, for me, if I start this at about 9 in the morning, by about maybe 1:30 in the afternoon, my brain's like, dude, enough, okay? That's about the point at which I will take a break and I'm done for the day. So usually 1, 2, 2:30. Sometimes I pick my laptop up, go down to Starbucks, sit there and write for like another hour, because just a state change sometimes can help you do it, okay? My point here is, first of all, it's at the best part of my day, which is usually in the morning. Second, it's undistracted. There's nothing else in my brain other than writing. The third thing is all I'm doing now is building momentum. And it's been my experience that I'll sit down and write the introduction to my book, and it's just okay. I mean, maybe. It's probably more like, you know, what somebody would write sitting backwards on a horse, drinking a beer, writing with a quill. I mean, it's not very good. Let's just say that. Chapter 2, take away the horse and the quill, still written by somebody drinking a beer, you know? Chapter 3 gets better. Chapter 4, oh my gosh. Chapter 5, wow, this is amazing. By the time I get done with chapter 6, I'm crying, okay? It's so good. Now that's the time to go back and fix chapter 1 and chapter 2, okay? Because most people, when they write, you're writing and you're like, gosh, I'm just no good at this, and I don't know why. You haven't gotten into momentum yet, okay? And you're giving yourself all this critical editing and everything, but you haven't gotten going yet. So give yourself the chance to write. I know writers who will sit down, and I kid you not, for the first day, they'll write blah, 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 blah. They'll type blah, blah. All they're trying to do is get the motions moving, okay? I know other people who will literally just sit there and write a story that they're listening to, just to get into the motion of doing it, okay? Now, I said that I would mention music. I'll say this, and then I'll come back and answer some of your questions, if you have any, okay? I listen to the music that is appropriate for the kind of book that I'm writing, okay? So, I wrote a book called Warrior. That book is the original subtitle was How to Fight for Your Faith, Freedom, Finances, and Future. The second subtitle, which it is now, is Understanding the Furious Love of the God Who Fights for You, okay? That book was about standing up for what you believe in, okay? And that book, the music track for that whole book was Braveheart and Band of Brothers. I don't know if you listen to either of those tracks, but it's like, you know, storming the hill, all right? So that's the music I listened to there. Now, when I wrote 21 Day Miracle, it was more of like Eminem, frankly. It was like a little bit more of like Lose Yourself and like kind of like some motivation music to really get the juices flowing, because that was thematically the way the book was. So if you're gonna write a book about gardening, Diana, you're gonna listen to music that's more appropriate for what you're trying to write. I've written before too, for example, just classical music, right? Just to get your brain. There's a really great track on iTunes or a playlist called Classical Music for Studying. Boom, put that in and get yourself into the frame, okay? Now, I'm going to talk about editing in a moment, but this is, like I said, this is the start to the discussion of writing. Write, do it the best time of the day. For me, it could be night for you, by the way. Do it at the best time of the day. Write and not edit. Write. You're going to get better and better and better, and then do everything else after that. So all of your other things, email, checking all in with your team, and then listening to music. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna jump back really quickly to center camera and take any of your thoughts, questions, comments, and then I'm going to shift gears quickly. I'm gonna talk about the book online, and then we'll get into the rest of it. Okay, so good, thank you, Giovanni. It's gonna be awesome for you to do that. Gina, I'm gonna try that horse beer quill writing method. So I wrote, let me see if I can find this. I didn't pull it up. Here it is. I'll share this with you. So this was a blog post that I wrote. I even drew a picture, Gina. This is the post. This is on my blog. You'll find it if you just go to edrush.com. This is how I wrote a 288-page book in 7 days, and how you can too, even if you failed Mrs. Potter's third grade English class. So the points on this, it's funny. I didn't look at this for a while. So I've done all of this. You should read this anyway. So point number 1 was give yourself permission to write a crappy first draft. Number 2, what I just said, which is don't write and edit at the same time. Number 3 was write, and feel the momentum. I'll read this to you. Chapter 1 reads like something Curious George wrote with an ink blotter drunk while riding a horse. And I actually drew this picture. I don't know if you can see this. That's the picture of Curious George drinking a beer with an ink blotter. I drew that. I'm not even good at drawing. So that's my chapter 1. Chapter 2 reads like something I wrote while drunk and riding a horse. Chapter 3, better but still passable for Mrs. Potter's 3rd grade English class. Chapter 4, okay. Chapter 5, good. Chapter 6, really good. Chapter 7, freaking amazing. Chapter 8 and all subsequent chapters, a combination of nirvana, heaven, and the pleasurable sensation you get while going down a water slide. Your brain is screaming, look out, Hemingway, there's a new kid in town. Ah, I love that feeling. And here's what it says, by the way. Now, to get to chapter 8 and after, you have to pass through chapters 1 through 7. All the time you're thinking that your book sucks, you're actually writing your way to perfection. You just have to slog through the mire to get there, okay? And then I get on to writing without distraction and then editing, which I'm gonna get to in just a second. So thank you, Gina, for sharing that. So I thought that was funny. Good comment as well. Dennis is reading my book, Warrior, bam. Jim said, I tried music, but I dictate my books and the dictation picks up words from the music. And by the way, some people I know very successfully speak their books into a transcription that they edit. It's been my experience that I don't create good books that way. It's me. There's something about speaking versus writing that doesn't work for me, but everybody's got their own way. Instrumental beats, yep. And oh, here I'll just copy and paste the URL to my Jim House is here, by the way. Jim said, my first book I wrote was a picture book manuscript about the nativity story. 51 revisions. I listened to Amy Grant's Breath of Heaven over 1,000 times. That's really awesome. Most of you know, I did an interview with Jim, so most of you know Jim was my publisher on 21 Day Miracle and really helped me get that book from okay to great. He still doesn't know the words of the song. That's funny. All right, so by the way, if you just joined us, I know we're cranking right now, and I'm in the middle of teaching 6.5 book writing and promotion tips. What I said was we're going to cover writing, creation, and promotion. We're not going to get there all the way. But I do want to do something quickly. So I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to actually jump into promotion, and then I'm going to jump back into the editing part, and then we'll probably wrap it up there. I'll take your questions. Because what I want to do is I want to share with you, I want to show you some of the components that on my book, but then I want to share with you Dennis Bauer's book. And I know you're going to be tempted to do this, but hang on for a few days, because what we're going to do, Dennis, you and I, is we're going to find some really good categories for you, for your books, and then we're going to tell everybody on the show to go buy your book at 99 cents, and we're going to see how your book does in terms of performance, okay? So I'm going to share my screen again, so you can see there's that little article that I just wrote. Okay, so what you're looking at now, I know this is like a little bit of an eye chart. This actually is my sales dashboard for my books. Really, this is 21 Day Miracle. You can see right now we're in the middle of May. So you can see, like for example, 2 weeks ago I had a day where I sold 125 books. Normal purchases, 24, 13, 12, 14, 10, 41. Okay, this is like a normal, I normally sell 10 to 20 books a day if you just sort of average it out. Now, if I go historical, you'll see there were some months where I sold 4,000. There was a month here where I sold 4,500. There's a month at 1,700. Last month was 598. Okay, so like I said, 10 to 20 books per day. But I'm just showing you that, basically just to say, like, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to books. And this particular book has sold close to, at this point, 30,000 copies. It may be over that by now, but I want to just show you that. Now, here's the book here's my Amazon author page. We can talk a little bit more in depth about the author page. There are some considerations when it comes to brand, but I don't have time to get into that. What I will tell you is you do want, as an author, you do want to use all of the real estate on your Amazon author page, okay? So, for example, all of my books obviously are linked here, but look at this. See, Amazon gives you not only the ability to put your little bio here, which is great, okay, with the ability to put your website here, but It also lets you put pictures, different pictures than your author pictures. And this is really cool. You can link your blog to your Amazon page so that every time you post on your blog, it automatically updates on your author page, right? So for example, today I wrote a new blog post called 4 Fighter Pilot Tips for More Focus. Okay, if you haven't done this, you should watch, by the way, watch the video instead of reading it, because there's some fun at the end. There's some outtakes with my kids, which is pretty fun, okay? So same with this one. You'll see there was a blog post that was posted last week, 4 live video tips that you can use now. So use your Amazon author space, okay? Now, I'm gonna click over to my book on Amazon. Again, I'll go into this in more depth on a future show, okay? But when you look at this, first of all, you'll see there are 277 ratings. I can talk about that in a little bit. Here's the description of the book, typically what's on the back of the book. I make my books, I'm a Kindle Unlimited member, but I make my books the lowest you can make them on Kindle, which is 99 cents. The audiobook, oh man, I should have brought, I have a coupon. So Robert, remember when I mentioned this a month ago and then I didn't have them, but we asked for them? I have coupons for Audible. So if anybody wants to listen to the audiobook, email me, and I have some coupons inside of Audible that I can give out. Our deal is you're gonna listen to the book and write a review, okay? So I need to get some reviews on my audiobook. So Amazon lets you have I think it's 10 or 20 basically that you can give the book away. And so you have to listen to it. Amazon Kindle knows, Audible knows if you didn't listen to it. So you actually have to listen to it and then write a review, okay? So that would be awesome if you did that. Okay, so so this is the book sitting right here. Now, I wanna show you something quickly, because this is gonna be important when we talk later on about a book promotion. See this book cover right here, nice and big? This is actually more like it. See this little cover down here and these little covers right here? This is how the world sees your book. This tiny, 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 teeny, tiny little cover. So for example, on this book right here, see this one from Michelle Coop, which is a sponsored item. I don't know who this is. If you're listening, I'm gonna give you some advice, but don't read into it. I think you're amazing, okay? See how this says, how to find your passion, 25 questions you can blah, blah, blah. I can't read that, okay? I can see the mental toughness handbook, but I can't read any of that stuff down there. None of that stuff comes up, okay? When I look at this is 21-Day Miracle, how to change anything in 3 short weeks. You can see it, and the promise of the actual book is right there on the cover. Again, when I talk to you about book promotion, we're gonna get there in just a second, okay? This, by the way, this area right in here, the Amazon bestseller rank, this right here is where all the action's at. And Dennis, I'm gonna get to yours in just a second. And here's all the reviews, whole bunch of 5-star reviews. Thank you, Jim Butts, and 8% 1-star reviews, which you're gonna be okay with as well. Okay, so let me come back real quick and just let you know, because some of you are have just joined us, okay? So if you just joined us, this is 6.5 book writing and promotion tips. So we're in the middle of now at least a 2-part series. Seriously, I thought I was gonna be able to do this in one. I have like 10 minutes left before I take your questions, okay? So we're gonna get the writing part down, but I need to jump, Dennis, into your book because I wanna show you some things, and then you and I are gonna look together for some good categories. Okay, so that's the code. So you're not gonna be able to copy that from the screen, but it is in chat. If you wanna go to Audible, ACX or audible.com, and you can use that code to get my book for free, okay? Hey, go do it. And like I said, our deal is listen to it and write me a review. It doesn't have to be a 5-star review, but like at least make it a 4-star review. All right, so Linda says, which come first, the blog or the book or the video series? Blog, book. I'm not sure. Blog, book. I think if you're asking about the weekly flight briefing, I do them all at the same time. Thanks, Ski, appreciate that, buddy. This is interesting, by the way. Apple just announced a self-publishing service. I'm not surprised. So very, very good. Yeah, so thank you, Dennis. This is exactly where we're going. Good. Okay, so this is where we're headed. So if you just joined us, we're talking about book writing and promotion tips. I'm taking a side journey because in a moment, I'm going to be showing you what you can do with your book in terms of your own promotions, okay? So I'm going to go back to the screen here, and I'm going to pull up your book right here. Now, first you'll see good-looking cover. He just made a big update to that cover. Same thing, he's at $2.99. Dennis, when we do our little promotion for everybody on the show, you're going to take that down to $99. You can put it back up after you want to do that. Now, the thing that we need to do, Dennis, for you is I'm gonna teach this quickly, and then we can demonstrate this again next week. See how there's these categories that you're in right now? I want to show you something just quickly. So the first thing is, see this thing that says Amazon's bestseller rank? That's not nearly as important to you as this rank inside of your category, okay? So it's been my experience that you could sell 40 to 60 books in a short compressed period of time, say within an hour to 4 hours, and get #1 in any category where the top book has a bestseller rank of 3,000 or higher, okay? So, for example, let's take a look at this right here. See this book by Brené Brown called Daring Greatly. I looked at this book a little bit earlier today, and I think if I'm correct, she's in the top several hundred. Check it out. Yes, it's the number 133 book overall. Now, Dennis, for you to beat her in your category, my experience is that this is about 500 to 700 book sales in a day to be at about 133. Okay, so my guess, best educated guess is that Brené Brown is selling 500 to 700 books per day. Okay, if you take a look at this other category, that was the first one, spiritual. Hold on a second, my page just reset. Hold on, hang on, where are we at? There we go. If you look at the second one, Motivation Self-Help, you'll see this book here by Judy Dyer, which is called Empath. Again, I'm going to look at the overall bestseller rank, which is 174. Again, she's probably selling 500 copies of this book. And then in your third category, you've got Motivation, Growth, and Spirituality, which in this particular category, the #1 book is Brené Brown's book, again, because I already looked at this. See that? That's the Daring Greatly book. Now, your job is to find less or non-competitive categories, okay? And there's some pretty easy ways to do that. And then what you do, Dennis, is you send an email to Kindle using their customer support, actually, which is right here at the bottom. See this little button here that says, well, it's covered up by my little button down here. But there's a customer support button right down at the bottom. You come back and email them and tell them that the new categories that you want, okay? But what, Dennis, you and I are going to do is we're going to jump on the phone probably sometime this week, okay? And you and I are going to look for 2 to 4 new categories, and then we're going to come back to the show next week, and everybody's going to buy your book for 99 cents, okay? And look, you don't have to buy the book if you really have an objection to spending 99 cents, but it's 99 cents, all right? So get the book, and then when you come to Dallas in June, Dennis will buy you a beer, okay? All right, so we're going to do that. I just wanted to show you what you're looking at when it comes to creating a bestseller in its category, okay, which is a bestseller, right? So just so you know, when someone says, hey, I'm a bestseller, or I'm a #1 bestseller, even if they are a New York Times bestseller, they are still a bestseller in their category, okay? So if somebody's the #1 fiction book, or teen fiction book, or business book on New York Times, business nonfiction, that's a category. Amazon has categories too. When you are the #1 in your category, you are a #1 best-selling author. When you are top 10 in the category, you're a best-selling author. You got that? Okay, cool. So I'm going to jump back on the board. I'm going to talk about writing, a little bit more writing. By the way, thank you, Robert. Awesome Saturday when I listened to 21 Day Miracle. So instructive, motivating, and entertaining per the Top Gun. That was read by Rob Actis, by the way. And I'm going to do a show Next week or the week after, I'm going to do a show with Rob Actis, who read my audiobook for Audible. He's one of the most prominent voice actors in the world, and we're going to talk about how to promote your audiobook too, okay? So, all right. Jim said, it took a couple of days for the price change I made the book in KDP to show up, so consider that price changing right away. Ooh, hey. So, yeah, he'll sign it for you when you get to the event. That's awesome, man. Thank you for asking that question. All right, I love it. You guys are the best, man, I'm telling you. All right. Hey, by the way, if you just joined us, this is your website right here, Ultimate Speaker. Today's the day to get in. And I know I'm not telling you everything, but you're about to get hooked up. So go there and enroll. You're going to thank me. All right. So let's do this last little part. Then I'm going to take a couple of your questions as we jump back. Okay. So hang on a second. I got to switch my cameras here. All right. Let's get back to this last little part right here about writing. Okay. Now, the last part of the writing is the editing, okay? And just for space, man, what is the deal with me dropping this eraser on the floor? All right, just for space purposes, I'm going to just erase this and just get into the editing. Okay, now, when you edit, the editing, okay, so let me just say it this way. The creation and writing of a book is one of the most enjoyable things I've ever done. And for those of you who've written a book before, you feel the same way. I mean, it's like this new birth. I mean, you see this thing that you created and you're like, I created that. Man, that's like came out of me. And I will tell you, I don't know about how it works with you, but when I write, I come up with these crazy new ideas. So I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, when I was writing that book, Warrior, I ended a chapter, one chapter. It was such a beautiful ending to a chapter that I kid you not, and I don't even cry very much. I was weeping when I hit the end. I'm like, oh my God. I ran upstairs and showed my wife. I'm like, you have to read this. This is so, it was such, I mean, it was amazing, okay? So it's like you just gave birth to this beautiful thing. Now, in as much as the writing is amazing, the editing is the other side. Awful, okay? It is easily, in my opinion, the hardest part of a book, okay? So I'm going to give you a couple editing tips, and then we're going to wrap up today's show with just a couple little questions. Okay, so the first thing is the first pass is the squiggly line pass, okay? That's when you're going through. Remember I said when I get to the end of the chapter, I usually just go back through the chapter. I like take a big deep breath. I go back and I right-click all the misspellings, okay, and I fix the little phrases that got messed up. And I usually just run through the chapter and just clean some things up. I'm not looking for massive, big editorial changes. I'm just looking to make it readable, okay? So that's the first editing pass, and I'll typically do that through, a group of my chapters, okay? The second editing pass is similar, okay? But on the second pass, usually you're going through the whole book now. On the second pass, you're, again, cleaning up the entire book, looking at it for structure, looking at it for readability, okay? Now, this brings me down to the third editing pass. This one right here, you better get yourself mentally prepared for, okay? Because this editing pass, when you go through the third time, it's pretty clean now in terms of like grammar and spelling, all right? When you do your third editing pass, here's what you're doing. You're taking stuff out. And this is hard, okay? Because you'll be writing things, but then you'll realize, you know what? I took this like deviation or detour, and it doesn't really have anything to do with what I'm talking about in the chapter. You know what you need to do with that? You need to delete it, okay? Now, deleting something from the book that you created is painful. In fact, it's really painful, and most authors don't do it. So I figured out a little hack around this. What I do is I create a second document, and that document is called my unused copy document. And in my mind, I think, I'm going to use this later, and I'm going to use this some other way in this book. Because I wrote it, I'm definitely going to use it. So I say I delete a paragraph, take the paragraph out, I put it over an unused copy because it makes me feel like I'm not deleting something, I'm just using it someplace else. Now, the truth between me and you, I never use that, okay? Never gets used. But in my mind, I'm like, here, nice content. And that way, I don't feel like I'm getting rid of something that I'll never, ever see ever again, okay? And I'll bet you my books I'll bet you I cut about 10 to 15% of my book away. And all you're doing is cleaning. Sometimes you'll find a sentence that is, 15 words long that you could have said it in 7 words. You're going to edit it down to a sentence. Okay? Now, the fourth pass, you're going to print out your book. And you are going to walk around your office with a pen and you're going to read your book out loud. Okay? So, this was squiggly line pass. This was the editing pass. This was the cut pass. This was the out loud. Did you catch all this? Okay, you're going to do it out loud. And while you read it out loud, very simple. Anytime you stumble on a sentence, you have to edit that sentence because there's something about it that doesn't work the way people listen and hear and speak inside of their mind. Okay, so read it out loud. And when you read it out loud, you're also going to see the time that you put 2 whats next to each other, right? It was supposed to say, he wanted to know what we were doing, but your actual sentence said, he wanted to know what we were doing. But you know what? When you read it 50 times, your brain turned 2 whats into 1 because that's what your brain does. But when you read it out loud, you're like, what? Okay. All right. So the fourth pass, you're going to read out loud. Now, I'm going to do this quickly. This is when you, this is all author. This is all you. Okay. This is all you. And if you do this right, you can do this in like 2 days. All right. So don't make it a big deal. This here is when your first external editor comes into play, and this is your content editor. You know how you think about an editor as that person who fixes the grammar and the spelling? That's not this one. In fact, for my book, my content editor was Jim House, who's watching this right now, okay? The content editor now reads your edited book, and he or she says, you know what, Ed? Chapter 4 doesn't belong where chapter 4 is. Chapter 4 should be over here. And you know what? You started this thought in chapter 7, but you didn't continue it. You have to finish it. Real conversation, by the way. For real conversation. Jim goes, hey, on chapter 7, you started teaching something, but you didn't finish it. What's the deal with that? And I honestly told him, I go, dude, I got so tired of that chapter, I just had to move on. So he's like, well, can you finish it? So I finished the chapter, okay? So you need someone to look at your book as a whole and go, does the argument you're making in the book work? Does it go like, does it actually work through the process of the book? Now, this pause, this little space right in here, because what you're going to do is you're going to send your book to your content editor. And if your content editor is any good, they'll get it back to you in a week. If they're normal editors, here's what a normal editor does. They'll tell you they need like a month and a half, and what they're going to do is sit on it for 5 weeks and then get it back to you in a week, okay? So if a good content editor can get it back to you in a week, Jim turned it around, I think, in like 3 days, but that's because we were trying to accomplish something fast, okay? So a good content editor is going to do this, and I will tell you, this pause in here is terrifying. Because in your mind, you're like, he's going to hate it, he's going to hate it. I got so nervous when Jim and I jumped on the phone, I was like, I have butterflies. I thought he was going to be like, dude, this is awful. He goes, first thing he said, he goes, I think this is the best thing you've created. Oh, thank you. And he goes, but we need to fix some things. Okay. All right. So then the content editor then is going to give it back to you. You're going to add, delete, take some things out. Then you give it to a manuscript editor. This is somebody who hasn't been involved in this process. They're going to go through it, fix all of the grammar, fix all of the spelling, fix all of the punctuation, and then finally, you're going to lay your book out, okay? Then at the very end, you have a proofreader. Now, these people are different people because you want somebody at the very end to look at the laid out book and go, hey, wait a second, there's like a word on page 11. There's just one word on page 11. Can't we put that over on page 10? Okay, that's a proofreader. Now, that is a full book. If you are launching your book on Kindle, self-published, no budget, boom, do your editorial passes, boom, launch the book, all right? Or get somebody you know to read it and give you some thoughts, or get a friend of yours, or pay a cheap editor online. So this is a robust book process. I'm not saying you need to do all these things. If you're launching when I did my first book, there was none of that. Okay, I had one manuscript editor, boom, that's it, out the door. Okay, so don't feel like this whole process that I just taught you have to do, but this is the way you write a great book. All right, whoo, man, out of breath. Let me come back here to the center camera. Ha, I keep getting myself out of breath while I'm teaching. All right, back to the topic here. Dennis says, yeah, the book. That's funny. Jim, editing is much easier when you start from a good plan. Yep, you got to be willing to kill your darlings, isn't that, boys? Completing a book is a real rush. Just finished and loaded my book in Kindle. Boom, congratulations, Ski. I like that too. Very, very good. All right, cool. Great comments. I don't see any questions. If you got any questions, now is a great time to put them in there because we're about to wrap it up, baby. All right, so a couple things really quickly. So first of all, tomorrow, don't miss tomorrow, I'm bringing in Chris Casamassa. Chris is a client. He's also, if you're familiar with the Mortal Kombat series, Chris starred in that movie series. Chris is, a lot of the martial arts scenes you see in movies, that wasn't Batman, that was Chris, you know? That wasn't George Clooney, that was Chris. So Chris is also a martial arts stuntman, been in a whole bunch of movies, runs a hugely successful martial arts business. I'm gonna bring him in. We're gonna be talking about referrals and reviews and how he does it on the local marketing and how you can do it there as well. Friday's gonna be an open Ask Me Anything show. Tomorrow at 4, if you're registered for Ultimate Speaker, by all means, make sure that you come to our evening or to our training in the evening. Not only is Michael Hay going to be joining us, but I'm going to be giving you a gigantic announcement and how you're going to get hooked up. Okay, so we did today 6.5. We did about 20 tips. So I just said 6.5 because I thought it was fun to say, but we probably did 20 or 25. All right, so that was today's show. Tomorrow, local marketing with Chris Casamassa, and he's calling it Business Combat. And then Friday, Ask Me Anything. Again, come to the training tomorrow. If you haven't already done so, check your email, jump into the weekly flight briefing, do me a huge favor, comment on that video, tell me what you're gonna be implementing off of the video. It's been a blast to create those, and if you haven't gotten to the end of that video, get to the end of it because it's good. There's some good fun at the end of that too with my kids, okay? So that's the beginning of our discussion about books. I said we're gonna talk about writing, creation, and promotion, and right now we did writing, okay? So that was part 1. Part 2 will be coming next week. And next week's big, by the way, on the show. Next week is big. There's a new philosophy I'm about to start teaching called the Big Pivot. It's the new business normal, okay? And that's all gonna happen next week, all right? So, without any further ado, thank you, John Teague, appreciate that. Yes, I do, now I write from an outline thanks to Jim House. I never used to. Thanks, Corey, I appreciate that. Thank you, Giovanni. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up for today. Thank you for your time and attention. Come back tomorrow, and I will talk to you soon. Don't forget, we're all getting ready to get out of our bunkers here. This is a new world that we're coming into, and it's looking for you. It's looking for your answers. It's looking for your ideas. It's looking for your solutions. You're gonna be responsible. Together, we're gonna be responsible for recreating this world the way it should be, okay? So I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you for your time and attention. Go change the world.